What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the YouTube. Mike here. We are here today for legs. So shooting a leg session, my favorite session of the week without a doubt. So it's a quad focus session, a little bit of adductor, adductor at the start, and then just all quads. So I took you through my posterior session the last day, which is where my hamstring glute volume is for the week. Today is heavily going to be focused on our quads, and as I say, undoubtedly my favorite session of the week because it just demands that much more of you. It's the session that, as it's approaching, you know, Thursday, Friday, it's Saturday today, I'm starting to think about where I was last week, how it felt, and ultimately where I need to take things this week in order to progress. Progress has been really good, you know, throughout prep still with the new meso in place. I am coming up to 7 weeks through prep, so like a full 7 weeks, and I'm down 7.2 kilos as of this morning. We started prep at 90 kilos, and this morning I'm 82.8 kilos, so we've come a long way. The visuals are shaping up really nicely, well, from where they were. I still have a very long way to go, so we are eyeing up the muscle contest show 29th of May, natural show. I think that's 12 weeks from now, 13 weeks, something in and around there. And yeah, so I think it's going to be almost like a kilo a week we'll be looking to pull off, based on where I've been before, you know, through previous photo shoots and the requirements for me to get into true stage condition. So yeah, an exciting process so far, relatively okay. I don't want to, like, you know, speak too soon whereby, you know, another adjustment comes in and I feel all of a sudden like I'm burnt. We're for sure walking up the steps to low energy availability every week, as you know, calories are coming down, but definitely something that I'm enjoying, and I am excited about getting there, because obviously as we get there, that's when I'm going to be in shape in reality. Okay, getting through contest lean it's not for everybody, and this is my first time, you know, where I'm going to get there. Having full trust in my coach, having full trust in myself, in my abilities to do whatever he says is ultimately why I'm going to have that level of confidence. But I'm aware that I'm not quite like fully, you know, I haven't got the experience of being there. So, you know, we're going to see how I fare when I get there. But anyways, back to today's session. We're going to start off with seated abductions upstairs, and that's where you'll see me next. Quite often when it comes to leg training, okay, and I see it time and time again in the gym, I've been there myself, but it's the mind that gives up before the body. We know how important it is from an intensity perspective that we are bringing our sets very close to failure. But if your limiting factor is consistently your mind, whereby, you know, you feel that little bit of discomfort within your leg training and you give up at that point, you're not going to grow, guys. You know, we need to be taking our sets to or very close to muscular failure, not failure of our head to let us go any further. So, you know, it's going to be nearly every set with legs that you're going to hear them thoughts, you know, right, that's enough, this is getting hard. If you stop there, you're not going to grow. And if you can look at your quad, glute, hamstring development and you're not happy with it, but you seem to be doing all the right stuff, you know, you're hitting the volume landmarks, your execution is good. The one thing that needs to occur for muscle building, regardless of anything else, is that you work hard enough, okay? If that's not there, nothing's gonna happen. Okay. Warm up light, okay? Light. fire the adductor off yourself, go heavier. I used to be a bit of a minimalist when it came to training. And what I mean by a minimalist is I looked at the big muscle groups for legs and basically like just did movements for them. I kind of put it in my head that, right, as we get deep in a squatting pattern, you know, we train the adductor. As we get deep in a hinge pattern, the adductors come into play. So, you know, I don't really need to train my adductors and whatnot. But being a minimalist has never like truly been how I have been with anything. Okay, it probably came from the environment that I was surrounded by in terms of training, and you know, people that I listened to in the past. Whereas now I'm doing what kind of feels right to me in terms of being a maximalist, doing everything. Okay, so I'm not just doing my hinges, doing my squat patterns and saying, right, the adductors, you know, they're fine, they're getting trained there. I'm training them, okay? And it's certainly helping with thickness of shots from the front, thickness of shots from the back with the adductor being that bit bigger. And then just from a function perspective, you know, this is another area that we need to think of. If we get good function through the adductors, it's gonna pass or cross over into our squatting patterns, into our hinging patterns, whereby you're gonna be stronger in them end ranges. Don't have small adductors, train your adductors, train your abductors. We need glutes too, even as males. One rep up on last week. Second set at the same weight, matched reps, which is totally fine, okay? As I go deeper and deeper into prep, I'm not expecting to see, you know, the sort of rate of progress that I see across my massing phase. For me to see progress in something within sessions right now is a fucking win. That expectation has to change as you move deeper and deeper into prep. I'm still expecting to progress, and regardless of where that expectation is, I'll still be going into sets seeking progress. But when it doesn't come, you know, you think back to the phase that you're in, you understand kind of like what that means from an energy availability perspective, from the perspective of how that will affect progress, and tie it all in together. And it's important that you do that, otherwise you might get somewhat disheartened. So yeah, we'll definitely take the W on the top set for sure here. Okay, so some considerations for you if you are thinking about doing a contest prep. Firstly, you want to ensure that you've actually spent some time in a gaining phase yourself, okay? To put it mildly, you want to have some muscle, okay? There is no point going into a contest prep if you haven't spent 2-3 years like actually putting on some tissue, whereby when you diet down, because you know, in order to get on stage in an appropriate manner, you're gonna have to be pretty shredded, and if there's just nothing there, you know, what is the point, guys? So ensure you spend time, you know, 2-3 years actually putting on muscle. Secondly, you want to ensure that you have the financials available, okay? So contest prep, and if you're doing a season in particular, it's gonna cost a bit of money, okay? As it pertains to like supplements and stuff like that, you know, they should nearly be a given. There's not a whole pile of a difference between, especially for naturals, the amount of supplements that you're going to take versus if you are just being health focused, okay? So your usual vitamins are play there, creatine, protein, you know, that's the norm. Potentially you might look at, you know, some sort of, like something like a yohimbine, potentially, but again, not a necessity. With that in mind, right, there is going to be a cost to a prep, okay? So you're gonna have to pay for registration, you're gonna have to pay for shows, you're gonna have to pay for tanning, you know, trunks, all of this sort of stuff has to be considered, guys. It's not cheap, especially if you're gonna do multiple shows. So you need to be in a position where financially you're gonna be able to survive, because of course you have a life as well. The final consideration is just, you know, where you are in life, okay? The burden of prep is real, all right? It is a stressor. If you're not in like a good place yourself, adding a prep on top of that is, it might in the short term nearly be helpful, but I can almost guarantee long term it's not going to be good for you, okay? You might come out the other side of prep and be like, oh, bodybuilding ruined me or whatnot. You know, if you've got some issues as it pertains to or with, you know, food, that you haven't like got sorted, it's not going to be helpful long term, and you're probably going to come out being like, oh, you know, bodybuilding, you know, ruined me. On the other hand, if you've just got a lot of stressors in your life, maybe you know, stuff going on in relationships, stuff going on at family, whatever it is, you know, maybe prep right now isn't exactly what you need. But on the other hand, if you've spent time, you know, growing, you've put on an appreciable amount of muscle, you're in a good spot financially, and you know, life is generally good, and it's something you want to do, that's, you know, for me, what I would consider to be the box tickers. And if you're ready to go for it, that's what I would go for, guys. Okay, cool, sound, thank you. So, setting up your leg extension. First consideration is going to be the back pad. Okay, so with the back pad, that is going to be adjusted for you. The main thing is that the knee is just in front here. So, axis of rotation, pivot point is going to be here. We want to align our knee with that, where we're going to be rotating around. That's where our leg is going to be rotating around, is right here. That wants to be in line here. You can stop if you're done. And basically just bring the back pad up to a position whereby there's essentially no gap here, but at the bottom the knee is facing forward like it is here. And again, you know, that's just going to provide us with a good position for aligning the movement of the machine with the movement of the body. Then we've got the plate that's going to be on the shin here, and essentially I like to have this, you know, somewhere around, like not in a position where it's going to be rolling around the foot here. You can probably think back to a time where you did that and it was just annoying, okay? So somewhere up like lower portions of the shin, mid-shin is a good position to be. On top of that, we do have the hustler pad on here. All that allows us to do is get into a little bit deeper of a stretch. So it allows for greater range, because now our foot, our shin, our lower portion of our leg is back here, as opposed to it being here if the hustler pad was not there. Ooh, yes. So with this at the start of the session, I am putting a focus on the top portion of the movement. So I'm getting up to the top position and holding for a quick pause. It's not always even noticeable externally, but I can certainly feel it inside, you know, that pause is there. The leg extension at the start of my quad session is here to prime me for all the work to come, okay? So I've got my squat patterns, my leg presses after this. I've had some issues issues with my knees over the last couple of years. So placing a leg extension at the start is just going to help warm up the knee. It's going to drive blood flow, help me to create a better connection with my quads throughout the other movements. It also will pre-fatigue the quads a little bit, meaning I don't have to use as much load in the other movements. So all around, to be honest with you, it is a win-win. Leg extension can be done as a primer, or it can be done like at the end of a session to essentially take whatever is left in the quads and get rid of that essentially. So we're using it as a primer here today. We still have something at the end to do that, so that's all to look forward to. With my setup now, one thing that's important that I see some people like, you know, not do, which essentially takes away from the potential for that set, is just holding on. Okay, you can use straps. I personally don't like to use straps, but just ensure that you are gripping tight, guys, pulling yourself down into that seat so that you are in as stable a position as you can to permit the most output that you can. One more. Up, good. Find it there. Okay, so one more thing with the leg extension is a consideration for staying a little more upright or leaning back, so setting the back pad back a little bit further. There was a recent research paper that came out to show a benefit of leaning back further because you're getting more of a stretch on the quads, and that is super beneficial. I am using that currently with a number of clients to great effect. They love it, brilliant. For me personally, I know myself that the only thing I get is sore knees when I do that. So, you know, certainly something worth trying out. Back pad back a little further, lying back a little bit more. There's even some new machines coming out to essentially mimic that. But just because there's a research paper on it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be best for you, and that's why, and that's an approach that I like to take. It's like an N=1 approach, and an approach that is a consensus across the AKA method. But something certainly worth trying out, seeing how it fares, how you feel when you do that, and either, you know, using that then, or saying, right, if you're like me, right, my knees are just sore when I do that, and then just getting rid of it. But one thing is, certainly try things out, guys. There's some things that will work and you'll be able to take forward with you. There's some things that you won't, because, you know, it just doesn't feel that good. And definitely do not be the person who just reads the research and just goes with that 100% of the time. Yes, there's a time. There's so much we can take from research. In fact, like most of what we do now, from a sets, reps, volume, all that sort of stuff, you know, that comes from research. Research is helpful, but what can be unhelpful is if you just take everything as, you know, factual for you and your body, where that's not necessarily the case. We're often looking at averages, the average amongst a lot of people, and that's just something to consider. Good. I die off so much there. So one time you will have no excuse to not get deep in a leg press variation. It's got to be the Cybex squat press, okay? Undoubtedly, in my opinion, the easiest movement in the gym to get deep. You know, it's just a work of art. We're gonna go through it now in a minute, but for any leg press variation, any squat variation either, I'm gonna be looking to keep my feet nice and low on the platform. foot angle, so whether they're face forward or your feet are slightly outward, is going to be personal dependent, specific to you as a unique individual. Have a play around with that, guys. So again, like I was saying earlier, you know, there's no harm in trying something out and seeing how it goes for you. But anyways, nice and low on the platform. What that allows is, as we come down into, you know, full depth here into the stretch, we're going to create more knee bend. The more knee bend we create, the more stretch we get on the quads. Higher up your feet are going to be on the platform, ultimately what that's going to mean is you're going to be, you know, focusing more on the hip extension part of the movement as opposed to knee flexion, knee extension, and what that's going to involve is more glutes. So higher up on the platform will give you more glutes, low equals more quads. If you're a little bit wider, you may get a little bit more adductor, so the groins, like I was talking about earlier. Again, but I wouldn't like make it specific to try and target that. Just know that that's going to be there if you are a little bit wider. But how wide you go is ultimately going to be determined not by trying to get that in. It's going to be more determined by what feels comfortable for you. Find what feels comfortable and train. Go 180 for 100. I'll go 200. He did 180 the other day. Well, yeah, fuck it, let's do it. Let's do it. More. Drive. Good. Look. I need to get my shit together. That was your June goal, yeah? June goal, smashed in February. Fair play, good stuff. Come on. Same reps for 3 weeks in a row.
I thought you had 2 extra plates.
Today?
Last week had 6 plates.
No, 7. At least I tried it. I didn't even go for that the last 2 weeks. Like, that wasn't on the agenda. Right guys, so something I was thinking about earlier was the importance of capturing your journey along the way, okay? So, you know, it's something that I often, like in check-ins each week with clients, something I'll do quite often is maybe show, you know, their starting photos versus where they are now. Or it might be that we look at like exercise execution and where we started with that versus, you know, how that's progressed down the line. Because, you know, when you're in it every single day, it can be quite hard to recognize your progress because it's obviously happening at like a slow pace, and you're just constantly evolving. But because the evolution is continuously occurring, it's not something that you really recognize unless you look back, you know, at the person that, you know, started the journey. It could be the physical, it could be the performance-based stuff in the gym, could even be how your psychology has changed throughout the process. For me, the reason I thought of it this morning was I ended up flicking back through, like, you know, some old Instagram reels that I made, and to be honest, I cringed at some of them, how I was speaking and stuff like that, and maybe in the future I'll cringe at these. But yeah, just seeing how I I've evolved in that regard. It actually showed me just how far I've come. And it's something that I do with clients, as I say, on a regular basis. And that's the real time they note their own progress. So make sure you are capturing along the way. Take your progress photos with, you know, your work in the gym. Video yourself. See what it is that you could be improving on a week-to-week basis. Put it into action, and then compare down the line, you know, the changes that you've made from a performance perspective, because it's really empowering when you do it. I'm glad to see you did something there. I'm not doing my set. I'm not doing. How's that weight? Is that heavy? We'll work with that then, yeah? We'll work with that. Setting up the swing squat to get the most out of your quads. As I've discussed already with the leg press, the first consideration has to be for foot position. You want to place your feet as low as possible, that as you go down, you can still get as deep as possible and you feel strong in that bottom position. For a lot of people, this will mean a position whereby they keep their heels planted on the floor, okay? So heels on the floor is gonna provide you with a lot of stability as you press through and bring yourself back up to the top, because we're looking at the 3 points of contact there: big toe, little toe, heel. Some people do like to allow their heels to come off the platform, and that's totally fine. You know, that's something gathered through experience, not something that I would do straight away. After that, the consideration is for foot position in terms of like the angle that we're placing our feet, okay? So again, for some people, it will be straightforward. For others, it might be slightly angled out, allowing the knees to drive out as you go down toward the bottom. Lower back stays pressed in against the back pad, and from there, all we're looking to do is keep tension through the midsection. Ensure that we're not avoiding the bottom or stretched position, getting down nice and deep, getting a full stretch on the quads. And then the most important part of all, you're probably bored of hearing me saying it is taking that set all the way, not leaving reps in the tank. That is where you're going to maximize what you can get from one set. And the more consistently you can take your sets there, yes, it's going to be hard. We're getting into it now, the storm is coming. But that's where the growth is, guys. Avoid them hard reps, avoid the growth. Simple as. This isn't a machine that Ellie is actually doing within her program at the minute. She's just following along with my session today. So one of the considerations is how heavy are we going to go? Personally, I would rather undershoot the load here as opposed to like overshooting load, whereby she gets like 2-3 reps and then she's just like, that's it, done. I prefer to undershoot load and go for higher reps. That means it is something that we can adjust down the line in our next set. So this is something that you could even take with you. Maybe if you go to like another gym, you're unsure of the loads of the weights that you're going to be using. Initially, undershoot, and then from there, you know, subsequent sets, you can reassess, readjust that. But with that initial set, don't just work within your rep range, take it all the way. You know, even if you go 3 or 4 reps above what you had intended to do. Proximity to failure, again, I'm starting to sound like, I'm just repeating myself, but it is absolutely essential. Make sure these sets count, guys. All the way, all the way, all the way. Good, 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 good. Plus +1 on both sets. At this point of the session, at this point of prep, I will take that. Last exercise of the session. We have, in terms of quads, we went through our leg extension. We have went through our squat press or leg press. We went through our swing squat. That might be something that you would do in like the opposite order. It's what I did in the opposite order for quite a while. As I mentioned earlier, just to help keep my knees nice and happy. We have essentially reversed the order, which does make it a little bit more knee friendly. Of course, I am lifting a lot less on the swing squat than I would be if I was coming in fresh. But again, helping keeping me progressing in the gym for like the longest time. And like that is the most important thing, okay? Is how long can you do this? You know, bodybuilding is a game of essentially delayed gratification. It's a game of, you know, how long can you do this for? How well can you do for how long can you do it? And ultimately, this is going to allow me to continue to progress for a longer window of time before I need to deload, before I need to take time away. Last exercise today is going to be a plat squat on this Magnum pin loaded leg press. So it's obviously the lying leg press in the gym. For me, it looks a bit more like a hack squat, but we're going to be doing essentially a plat squat on it. All that is we're going to have my feet nice and low on the platform, quite narrow, and as I go down into that squat, I am going to allow my heels to come up off the platform to allow me to maximize my range. I am doing this with pretty low weight and for high reps. So we've 2 sets here. There'll be my 8th and 9th sets of quads for today, and we're looking at between 15 and 20 reps. Around the gym, guys, it reminds me of essentially what my biggest regret is with physique development, and that is how I approached the initial years of physique development. So when I started out going to the gym, it was largely to try and help with my Gaelic football, okay? Now, in the process of that, I did fall in love with going to the gym, but in the back of my mind was always that I wanted it to be a better footballer, okay? And ultimately, because I was going to the gym that bit more, I was actually taken away from my football. But because I wasn't going to the gym to really maximize physique development, I wasn't getting what I could have out of that. And I look around the gym now, obviously the rise in social media and the popularity of bodybuilding has helped this massively, but it's just the intent and the focus that a lot of the younger guys have, the 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and the physiques that they actually have for their age. It's something that I regret not like leaning in on a little bit earlier. And I guess if I could like help out anyone around that age now, from this, what I would say is like go after it. Learn as much as you can from reliable sources. And really lean in on it, because it is during them years that you have the most potential to grow if you make the right calls. Like I definitely didn't. I know for a fact I didn't. I was doing barbell squats with a jump for power development, yeah, I really wish I maximized my physique development through how I was training, because just going to the gym, just doing movements is not going to do that. You need to be specific to you and your goals. Lean in, learn, and give it everything. Focus on what you do in the gym, how you're doing it outside of the gym, eat food, okay? Don't be that guy that's trying to diet from 16, 17, 18, unless you've got a lot of body fat to lose, of course. But if you're someone who's like relatively lean, eat your fucking food. Allow yourself to grow, because that is where you'll maximize your physique development during them younger years.
Push.
Oh. Last 2 reps of the day. Press through. Good. One more. Let's get it, else. All the way. Come on. Last one. Last rep for the day. Let's get it. That one move fast. All you have. Come on. All you have. Come on. Good. Right. That is our session, guys. We started off with 2 sets of abductions. We moved on to 2 sets of seated adduction, and then it was into our quad work. 3 sets of leg extensions, challenging the rectus femoris in the shorten range, the only movement that is going to permit that. We then moved on to our leg press, 2 sets of leg press, followed by our swing squat, 2 sets on the swing squat. From there, we just, whatever was left, it's like we've done all that good work. What's left? That's what we get rid of here. I am tanked. I'm absolutely tanked. 9 sets of quads in the bank. Now it is on to everyone's favorite, cardio. 40 minutes of cardio post-training. As I said earlier, 120 to 140 beats per minute. That should be relatively easy to get to and hold. I find it easier after training sessions. When I come back and have to do it like away from training for whatever reason, if I PTs after or whatever, it is a little bit harder to get up there. But after legs, it should be relatively easy. That's my last session of the week. So essentially that's another week of prep down. I think it's week 7. It could be week 8 either way. Okay, so session over. What I'm gonna run you through now is just my current setup. So of course I am training 5 days a week. Okay, that doesn't change from prep versus non-prep. It's what I enjoy most. Find any more than that, like 6 days a week with 1 day off, you don't get the most out of me, to be honest with you. Like in terms of being like excited about going to the gym, I like 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off, or vice versa. In terms of nutrition, we're now at 2,686 calories, 256 protein, 300 carb, 50 fat. Non-training day, 2,494 calories, 240 protein, 262 carb, and 54 fat. I actually didn't realize it was that low. They're the adjustments through from this week. I have 40 minutes of cardio to do every single day, training and non-training days, and I'm at 12,000 steps per day. So if we compare that to where I started prep around 3,500 calories on a training day, 3,300 calories on a non-training day. It's at 20 minutes of cardio, just 5 days a week, and my steps were at 10,000 steps a day. When we look at competition prep, we need to understand the cards we have in our deck, and if we use all of them cards at once, i.e. we come out of the traps with everything at play, when we do run into a plateau, there's not much else we can do if we've used all them cards. So ultimately the aim is to start prep in a position where we know we're going to elicit that initial change, and then from there, every time we need to make a change, we're just manipulating something, whether it's pulling 200 calories, 50 grams of carbs, whether it's in terms of cardio, adding 5-10 minutes onto sessions, or adding in more sessions of that, whatever it is, we're slowly chipping away at that. I like to see it as like ultimately walking up the stairs to, as I said earlier, low energy availability, just taking what we need, versus if you come out of the traps really hard, you're coming out at 2,000 calories straight away. Okay, like an hour of cardio every day. You'll get, of course, that initial nice jump, and you'll be able to run that for quite a while. But when things do slow down, you're now all of a sudden having to push to 1,750 calories, or you're at 2 hours of cardio a day, or an hour and a half, whatever it is. Your steps are up to 20,000 steps, So just understanding, what you need to do in order to elicit that change, and then slowly moving with things from there is, of course, my recommendation. And it's working pretty well. I think it's 7 weeks in, 7.2 kilos down, with still plenty of cards in the deck for us. Like, I'm not hungry. I think my hunger has been at most a 4 out of 10 throughout prep. Everything else is really good. So, I'll be able to ride this wave and a couple more adjustments for maybe the next 6 weeks without really feeling too much of a pinch. Of course, that is going to come. I'm under no illusion as to, that not coming, but it's not from the start, guys, okay? Don't use all your cards at once. So, if you've made it this far, thank you very much for listening to me. I hope you got a lot from that, in terms of maybe some things from an execution perspective, or just some general things in terms of perspective. I'll be back about 8 weeks out. I'm not sure who I'll be joined by. Potentially Adam, potentially Alan. I don't know. It's not planned yet. But thank you guys for listening. I hope you got something from this, and I'll chat to you soon.